First off, in one word, how would you describe your experience writing the final girl support group?
A relief. I guess that was 2 words. But no, this is a book I've been working on for a very, very long time. So it was nice to finally have it out.
Could you talk about how you came up with the idea?
Yeah, it was actually a title before it was a book or a story. I just thought it was a great title. And, there's a moment in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 from back in the 80s where the final girl from the first Nightmare on Elm Street leads a group therapy session for the kids in part 3. And that had always stuck with me. And I remember thinking, God, if there were final girls in real life, they would need a lot of therapy. And so I started working on the first draft, I think in 2014, and just it was really tough to get it to where it needed to be. So it took me that long to get it right.
Do you know how the story would end, or did it come to you while writing it?
Yeah, no, I had a pretty good idea about the ending from the beginning. Like, I looked at the draft from 2014 a couple of weeks ago, and the major moments are there. Like, all the big plot points are there to a large extent. What really changed was fleshing out the characters and the world they lived in and sort of getting into their emotional lives rather than just having them run through the plot and the story.
I know you were able to get Adrian King, the final girl from
Yeah.
first Friday the 13th film, to narrate the auto book version. So how did you get her to do it?
So I have a friend who knows Adrian, and when I finished the book, I'd named a character in it after her, and I thought I'd send it to her just to say hi. And she really loved the book, and we started talking on the phone. And then at the same time, we were looking for an audiobook narrator. And the people who were auditioning were fine. They were doing a perfectly great job, but there was a little bit of like, I don't know, there was something missing and like a little bit of character missing. And I thought, well, why not Adrian? Like, she'd done voiceover work and dialogue looping for movies before, and she connected with the material. So we set up an audition for her, and she just killed it. There was so much passion in her reading. It was her connection to the material was something no other narrator could duplicate. So it was really obvious that she was the right person for the job.
Which of the final girls did you have like difficulty writing, and why?
Difficulty writing. Let's see. Trying to think. Probably Julia, because I had to do a lot of research on people who use wheelchairs, just because I wanted to make sure I didn't screw it up. And B, it was hard to sort of get Julia's personality. She's one of those people who um puts forward a show that everything's okay, even when it's not. And I found characters like Lynette or Heather or even Marilyn, whose reaction to what had happened to them was much more extreme, um, easier to write than Julia.
What is your favorite horror movie as a kid, and what is your favorite now?
Well, it hasn't really changed a whole lot. I've kind of been a huge, huge advocate for Return of the Living Dead for a really, really long time. I've loved that movie since I was a kid, and I still do. But I also feel like one movie I've returned to over the years more than almost any other horror movie besides Return of the Living Dead is Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's original. Um, I think I saw it when I was a little too young, and it gave me nightmares for the rest of my life. And sort of watching it over and over again has been a way to sort of defuse that fear of the movie. I'm much more of a zombie guy than I am a slasher guy. I watch slashers, I like them, but I've never really responded to them in a personal way the way I do to zombie movies. Writing Final Girl Support Group, I really developed a huge love for slashers. And the one of those that I keep returning to again and again is Friday the 13th, Part Two, just because I think it's genuinely scary, a really well made movie. And I'll take Baghead Jason over Hockey Mask Jason.
What is your least favorite horror book and film?
I don't really have a least favorite. And I know that seems like a way to dodge the question, but I'm able to find something to love in all of them. Like, there's a really terrible movie I watched recently, Mask of the Red Death, which is not the earlier versions, but there's an 80s version that's a slasher version, and it's really boring and really tedious. But even then, it has some great kills in it, and it's got this ridiculous costume party in it with one of the best movie bands I've ever seen. So I'm sort of an enthusiast. Like, even if something's really boring, I find something to love. Oh, no, I will say actually, no. The one movie I can't find anything to love is Humongous, which is a slasher movie from the early 80s where they shot it so dark that you almost can't tell what's going on. And then in the scenes where you can tell what's going on, nothing much seems to be going on. So yeah, I'll take Humongous for that one.
Okay. And my next question is, in your personal life, have you experienced anything that's close to a horror film?
Well, probably. I mean, I think we all have, like by the time you get to a certain age, you've had people you love die. You had people die unexpectedly. You've been beaten up or in a fight. You've been in a car accident or some kind of accident. And none of them seem like horror at the time. They feel just like your regular life that suddenly took a really strange turn. And so they're all things that I'm able to draw on when I'm writing horror, but at the time they never felt like that. They just felt like just your life suddenly changing gears. Although I will say, um, when I was really young, probably 13 years old, I managed to set myself on fire with fireworks and got some pretty bad third-degree burns,
Oh,
and blew off some fingernails. And that's been a really, that did seem like a horror movie. It was happening because I had all this skin hanging off my leg and everything. And nothing is grosser than burns. And the pain of that has been something I've been able to sort of use in my writing a lot because I sort of remember how it feels. So, yeah, lighting myself on fire with fireworks is probably the closest thing.
and I know that you worked as a journalist at one time. So do you have any stories to tell that are close to a horror film?
No, not really. I mean, I loved being a journalist. It gave you an excuse to talk to anyone, ask anyone questions, to learn about stuff you didn't know about before. Trying to think if there was anything that was very horrific. No, I mean, I was working on a story once about militia groups and Y2K back in 1999. And I spent time with all these machine gun collectors. And there were moments with that. Like, we went to this big machine gun collecting convention, and everyone there was just a giant nerd, but they were a nerd about machine guns. I would say that was 80% of the people. And probably 20% of the people were in militias or those kind of groups. And there was a smaller subset of those who were neo-Nazis, or some people who were there were like Nazi reenactors. And I feel like the line between a Nazi reenactor and a neo-Nazi might be a little blurry. Um, but everyone wanted to be nice to us because we had a camera and we were recording and doing interviews. But there was one dude who I remember really, really well, who sat in the observation section watching people shooting their machine guns. And he just sat there like all day long. And he was dressed in an SS uniform. And all 3 days we were there, he was there, same seat every day. And he would just sit. I mean, never saw him eat or drink or go to the bathroom. And I remember thinking that was really like, if anyone was going to sort of like murder everyone there, it was this guy. He never did. He seemed pretty, ultimately he didn't do anything. He was probably harmless, but I do remember that he really like pinged my radar.
I know that you read other books while you wrote your other book called the Southern Book Club Guides to the Slaying Vampires.
Yeah.
Did you read other books while you wrote the Final Girl Support Group?
Yeah. And, a lot of them, I read a fair amount of sort of like, I actually only read Thomas Harris's Silence of the Lambs and his Red Dragon before I wrote Final Girl Support Group. But then after I wrote Girl Support Group, I dove into like serial killer and slasher fiction because there's not a ton of it out there, but there's a fair amount in terms of slashers, a lot of serial killer stuff. And I did that because instead of doing a traditional authors event, I do sort of a one-person show about like whatever the book is about. So I did one about vampires when I did Southern Book Club. I'm doing one about serial killer fiction and murder, what I call murder books now. And so yeah, so I really read a ton for that. But to write the book, I sort of limited my intake.
Congratulations on your novel becoming a TV series on
Oh,
HBO
thanks.
Max. And my question is, would you like to make a cameo on it? Or both of us make a
Sure.
cameo?
Yeah, I would love to be a dead body. That'd be great.
Okay, and then my next question is, what are your thoughts about Oscar-winning actress Charlize Theron and director Andy Muschietti, the director of It, getting involved in the project?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled. Both Charlie's and Andy Machete, and also his sister, Barbara Machete, who works as his producer, they were really instrumental in getting this to happen. And Charlie's is really focused and really direct and really concerned with getting it right. And Barbara, I've not dealt with Andy as much as I've dealt with Barbara, but she really gets the material in a way that means a lot to me. And it's one reason I went with them is it's really important to her and to Charlize Theron, but really to Barbara, that the characters in the movie aren't sort of scream queens or final girls, that they're first and foremost feel like real women. And to me, that means she really gets the book.
If you were ever to co-author a book with another author, who would you like to collaborate with?
Man. Well, my friend Stephen Graham Jones and I have actually almost worked on a project together. And I would still love for that to happen. Stephen is a huge horror nut and he's really into slashers. And I certainly picked his brain when I was writing Final Girl Support Group. And he actually went through a draft of it and corrected some stuff in there. So yeah, definitely Stephen.
What book did you read? Because everyone was reading it.
Oh, the one book I've ever, because usually I read stuff for work. So I'm reading weird old stuff no one else is looking at. The one book I read because everyone else was reading it, and I only read it for that reason, was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And I'm really glad I did. I thought it was great, but like I picked it up thinking I was going to hate it and was like, oh, everyone's reading this stupid book, and wound up loving it.
Yeah, well, because of the trailer for me, when I watched it, I decided to read the book and I loved it, and I read her other books as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And did you I liked her other books, but I thought Gone Girl was really amazing. Like the other
yeah,
books were good, but
yeah,
Gone Girl blew my mind.
yeah. And my second best was the Dark Places. That's the other
Yeah.
one I like of it. Yeah,
That was the one I liked a lot. Sharp Objects was the one with the mother and daughter,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
the teeth. Yeah, I like Dark Places a lot more than that one.
yeah. But you could tell that Sharp Object kind of influenced her with Gone Girl. I see a
Yeah.
little bit of that in that book. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I really liked about Dark Places was you really got a feel for the Midwest in that book. And that's a part of the country I don't know much about. And you don't see that written about a whole lot. So I really, really loved the setting in Dark Places.
Okay, so my next question is, which international author have you read that people in the States should know about?
Um, there's a few, but the one I just read, and she got a lot of attention for this book, but I'd love to see it be read by more people. Oyinkan Braithwaite wrote a book called My Sister, the Serial Killer, and I believe she's Nigerian, and it's great. It's funny, it's shocking, it's a horror novel. I thought it was fantastic. And I mean, she got a lot of attention for that book, but I would love to see it get more attention. It really flipped my switch.
Could you share a quote or two that inspired or motivate you in life?
Yeah. Well, there's two. Um, one is um someone once told me, because I used to write movie reviews and book reviews and things, and someone once told me that just because you like a movie, it doesn't mean it's good. And just because a movie's good, it doesn't mean you're going to like it. And what I realized was that there are movies that are objectively great movies, like 2001: A Space Odyssey is an objectively great movie. I don't really like it, but that's okay. It's fine not to like it. It's a good movie. And there's movies I love. I love Return of the Living Dead, but I also understand why other people don't think it's a good movie. And that quote really let me understand that my opinion was my opinion, and that it wasn't sort of like a taste test that everything had to pass or fail. And that there were also things that were like that movies and books and music, I just know less about music, can have objective qualities. It can be objectively good. It can be objectively bad. And I feel like by being objectively bad, it means it doesn't do what it sets out trying to do. And then the other quote is something that a writer I know who was teaching a workshop once said, just in passing. And he said, specific, he had read something I'd written, and he said, specific physical details. And I'll always remember that. And every time I write, I try to make sure that I take out all abstract language as much as possible, like happy or sad or anything. And I write the specific physical detail instead, that people can see and feel and touch, instead of some abstract emotional state.
What other genre would you like to write if you had the time to do so?
I would love to be able to write a romance. Like, it's hard. I've tried. It's really tough. And I would love to figure that out and try to do it.
Okay, and this is my last question. If you were to have an author support group, which 6 authors would you like to have in that group?
Oh man. Well, I'd probably pick people I know, just because, actually, you know what? I'd like to pick people I don't know, because I don't want the people I know to know what my personal problems are. So I would probably pick people who are dead, and let's assume they're not dead. Like, I don't want to be in an author support group with a bunch of zombies, because I'm too traumatized by zombies. But I would really, really love to be, I would love to be in an author support group with, let me think. Oh, Shirley Jackson, I think, would definitely be in there. I feel like Clive Barker, because I really want to know why he stopped writing for a long time. And then I'd really, really want to throw in, Mary Wilkins Freeman, who's an author who's become really forgotten, who was really, really fantastic back in the day. I throw in Vernon Lee just because she's a fabulous person. She's long dead, from the 19th century, but she never got enough acclaim. But I think she'd be fun. And I really, really want The Therapist to be Charles Dickens, because I would love to be as like prolific as he was, where he could just sit down and write whatever needed to be written that day and not worry about it a whole lot.
Don't forget to subscribe to Novel Pro Junkie. Press the notification button. Like, comment, and share if you will. Thank you.